Hello everybody and welcome to a brand new video. Today I'm going to be talking about inflation and deflation in old school RuneScape and my thoughts and opinions on how to fix it. So the main issue here is that there's a lot more gold coming into the game right now than there is leaving the game. Same could be said about items. So for an economy to stay healthy and stable, there needs to be ways of removing these things from the game. So we need to have gold sinks as well as item sinks and a good balance between the two. So between item sinks and gold sinks, which one is more important? And I would have to say item sinks are by far more important, because if you consider a gold sink, really what it's going to be doing is, let's say something gets added to the game and 30% of all of the money in the game pretty much gets removed on a monthly basis. So yes, that will reduce the price of items. However, it's kind of all relative. If you have 30% of the gold that was in the game, however, all the items drop by 30%, the ratio is kind of still the same. It's not a terrible idea, however, it's probably not what most people are worried about. What old school RuneScape mostly needs is item sinks, and that's what's causing certain items like the Dragon Axe to be absolutely worthless. There's tons coming into the game, and there's not enough leaving the game. Currently there are item sinks and gold sinks in the game. Some examples of item sinks would be the Abyssal Tentacle, or items like the Abyssal Tentacle that remove Abyssal Whips from the game after a certain amount of uses. And one of the biggest ones is Death. Now we'll talk about that in a minute, because currently there's not a lot of risk to dying, and this is not a very good item sink as it stands now. Some examples of gold sinks are fees, so like Nightmare Zone fees, converting bonds from their untradeable form, repairing degraded armor, or sometimes skilling actually can be a gold sink. So an example of this would be buying construction materials from a shop and then using them on your skill, and then that item is gone. So there are definitely sinks in the game, however, clearly not enough to counteract the amount of money and items coming into the game. Big one that has been talked about a lot, but kind of needs to be reiterated, is the death mechanic. Currently, there is minimal risk to dying, except in the wilderness, there's still risk. Before, there used to be risk to dying because you could actually lose your items when you were PvMing or doing quests, but now there's a very low chance of you actually losing your stuff. Now, I do understand the original reasons for changing the death mechanic. The servers were unstable, people were getting DDoSed for their items and gear, and obviously don't want people losing their stuff for no reason. However, there needs to be kind of a middle ground here. It's been like this for way too long now. There's just absolutely no risk, and beyond that, it changes dynamics for other things. Certain bosses or money-making methods have become way more powerful just because of the low risk. Normally they would be higher risk, however, because you just don't really lose your items anymore, they become so much stronger, and likewise, some methods and training methods have become much weaker because of this. So above all else, death mechanics need to be changed, not necessarily reverted to what they were before, but at least something in between where there's going to be a bit more risk to activities in RuneScape. So as far as new item and gold sinks, I have a couple ideas for what could be put in the game, or at least expanded on other things that are already in the game. So to start off here with gold sinks, I personally believe that any instanced boss should have a fee to reclaim your items. So bosses do already currently have this. Boss like the Gargoyle boss has a 50k reclaim fee. Vorkath, a new one, has a 100k reclaim fee. But that should really be added on to any instant scenario. So mainly Zulrah. Zulrah needs to have that fee, and I think it should be somewhere between 5 and 10% of its GP per hour. So if you're getting, well, 2 mil an hour from the boss, it should have at least 100k fee for dying. And it's not even that big a deal, because once you get better at the boss, you won't die that much. However, that will remove a tremendous amount of gold from the game. And even that is not a super high risk. Imagine if they just made it that you lost one of your items when you died to Zulrah, and it was just random. Like, stuff like that could be much more punishing. So really paying 100k when you die is not that huge a deal. Another good option for a gold sink, something I'm a little less fond about, but obviously game integrity is more important, is to have a service fee on the Grand Exchange. It doesn't have to be a lot, it could just be like 0.5% or 1/4%, but even that would remove a tremendous amount of GP from the game. So say you bought something for 10 mil and it removes like 80k from the game or something. There's two ways you could go about this. You can make it very minimal just to kind of skim the top off of every transaction, or you can make it punishing to kind of encourage players to trade between themselves as well, so that could have kind of a dual purpose and maybe bring back a little bit more of an old school feel to the game if that was also wanted. Another interesting idea I saw recently, it's from about a month ago, I saw it on Reddit, is kind of a variation of the Well of Goodness. Essentially, it would just be a place where you throw your money in, it's destroyed. However, you get put onto a separate high score table where people would vie for the highest amount of gold donated or highest amount of gold destroyed, or maybe there could be minor rewards for like billions of gold thrown in there. It's kind of an interesting idea, however it would probably only appeal to the wealthiest of players of RuneScape, so it's not really a gold sink that would appeal to most people. But I thought it was an interesting idea anyway. Another one that could be introduced is offering more bank slots at a cash value, so maybe every extra bank slot you want to buy would be a couple mil. However, again, this would appeal more to higher level players and not to the general RuneScape population. Another idea I thought of earlier was a sink for both items and gold, and it was kind of in response to a couple Reddit posts people had about having items stuck on their free-to-play account. Now, I don't believe Jagex would ever do it, but I think it's kind of an interesting idea. If during certain times or on certain accounts you were able to straight up trade your items in for a cash value that just went into your membership, like the items in gold were just straight up removed from the game, you weren't trading it for a bond or anything, it just got deleted from the game and you got given some membership for it. The reason I thought it made sense to do it from a free-to-play account that could no longer buy membership is that they could make it an inflated rate, maybe double the price of a bond to get the same amount of membership, and nobody would do it unless they had to in that situation, which wouldn't really be losing Jagex as much money, however would be removing items completely from the game in exchange for membership, or on that tangent, really in exchange for anything. That's kind of similar to an idea earlier, but somehow exchanging it for anything that is not currency in game or another item or a bond. So it could be a leaderboard, like I said earlier, it could be potentially for membership like this, or maybe it could be entering a draw or contest for a t-shirt or a button or a pin or something. Like, you'd be surprised at what some people will do if they have the option of doing so. Now, as far as item sinks, there are more limited the amount of options that there are. The ones in game are decent enough. They seem to work, except for some items that they just don't remove enough from the game. A good example of this is the Dragon Axe. It does even have an item sink similar to that of the Abyssal Whip, but unfortunately there's just way too many coming into the game from Dagonoth, and even though you can destroy them to have an Infernal Axe continuously, it's just not enough. So item sinks like the Kraken Tentacle, the Infernal Axe, the Infernal Pickaxe, these are all relatively minor. Unfortunately, it's not really sustainable to do this for every other item. While they do work for the items that are currently in game, can't really add it to every single popular PVM item in the game, it'd just be too much. They can mess around with these tiny item sinks, but really the death mechanic is what needs to be revised. So clearly the death mechanics are one of the most important things that needs to be changed. It doesn't seem like Jagex wants to revert it back to what it was before, which there is a fair point for that. You don't want to have everyone losing all their items because somebody DDoSes you at God Wars, or the servers completely disconnect and you lose 100 mil worth of items. However, there's no reason not to pick a middle ground somewhere that maybe adds a bit more risk to the game. However, it doesn't completely punish you with losing pretty much all your items. One option could be a kind of scaling item loss as time goes on. So maybe you have an hour to get back your items, but every 10 minutes you're going to lose one item or 10% roughly of the value of your items, or even a random item. I don't even think it has to be that much. However, it does have to be a bit. Kind of instilling the fear of risk and losing something is important to the game beyond just adding an item sink to it. I think it's important just for the general feel of the game and just making bossing and PVMing and questing just overall more fun, because things are more fun generally when there's a bit of a risk behind it. Anyway guys, that's about it. So there always needs to be a good balance between items coming into the game and item sinks, and golds coming into the game and gold sinks. I think Jagex definitely needs to make some changes over the next coming years. While it's not too bad right now, in the future this could kind of start going down a more dangerous path, similar to that of RS3. I think there can be more natural ways to fix this without adding in a brute force skill, kind of like Invention. Anyway guys, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, don't forget to leave it a like, and I will see you in the next one.